Hello, and welcome to the Johnversations Podcast. As always, I am your host, John Connor, and this is episode number 40. We've been off for a while over the holiday break and just, Thanksgiving and things being crazy, but we are back, and I could not be more excited about today's guest. He's a multi-instrumentalist, a singer, a songwriter, and the creative mind behind Sea Salt. His debut album, Block It Out, will be available December 18th. Ladies and gentlemen, listen on the internet, in your car, your headphones, wherever, treadmill, however you're doing this. Please give a very warm welcome to the very talented Mr. Kurtis Roy. Kurtis, thank you so much for being here, man. I'm just super happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. This is my first time talking to like somebody that is in music that's not like the person I live with. It's nice to talk to real people.
Yeah, man. Well, I was telling you before, I've been excited for this record to come out for the last couple of months. I'll be honest, I had no idea. Like, I remember you from PK Fire back in the day. When we were both just like local band, band kids. Yeah. And I always thought you guys were really good. I mean, for being young, you had a very mature sound, and it was very technical, but there was a lot of feeling in it. And then, Mat Halliday, who he does the post-production for this show, he actually mixed your record. He was telling me it was coming out and sent me some tracks that you've done before. And I was like, this is so good. So then when I found out you're putting out the full length, I was like, okay, when is it coming out? When can I have him on? Because I want to talk about it. And yeah, one of my favorite things is being able to promote projects that people may not, when a band puts out a record or something and it's on a large scale, it gets all this kind of promotion. But when you're putting the work in by yourself, my favorite thing is to be like, how can I share this awesome piece of art with as many people as I can? So
yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's hard doing everything by yourself, but yeah, I mean, like, thank you for like even listening and like being interested in talking with me. Like it means a lot to talk about my music because I don't really get to do it a lot.
Well, and I'll tell you too, I've got a 2-year-old daughter, and I was lucky enough, you sent me kind of a little sneak peek of the record before we met, and I was playing it, and my 2-year-old was just spinning around the living room. She super liked it as well. So you've got double seal of approval in this house. So.
Oh, that's sick. Awesome.
But yeah, man, I wanted to ask because, and I definitely want to get into the record because there's a lot of things that I wanted to talk to you about, and I think I kind of hear some influences, and I'm wondering if, maybe it's just something I'm associating with it, or if it's maybe something that, I'm kind of close in. But before we get to that, talk a little bit about like, when did you start playing? When did you find that you had that love for music?
Ooh, that started really early on. My whole family's kind of musical. And my mom used to teach piano here and there. So we always had like a piano in my house. And I kind of just like started messing around on piano. And then like, my great grandpa used to have like miscellaneous like bluegrass instruments in his house. And I would always pick it up and like sneak into his room and like play the banjo or whatever. And it turned into me playing violin in orchestra, in high school, middle school into high school. And that just kind of like solidified just like doing music and the way it made me feel. So yeah, I would say like about like 6th grade on, I was pretty hooked. Before then it was kind of like, I want to be a cartoonist and I want to draw cartoons. And then like 12 years old, it kind of was like, this is mine. Like, this is my thing that makes me feel like me. And I'm not just like buying into something or like, I'm buying an action figure, like I'm making something. And I thought that was cool. And so it stuck with me since, about like 12, I would say. Yeah.
That's awesome. And it's funny because I was right about the same age. And I wanted to ask you this because is there a moment or like a particular group or anything that kind of, you said like your mom did piano lessons and you would pick around on different instruments and stuff like that. But like, I know for me, I had a friend, Jeff Klein, who I've talked about before, but he, we were 11, 12 and he had an electric guitar and I'd never held one. And he listened to all, like, he listened to like Blink 182 and he listened to Primus and he listened to all the stuff that like I grew up on. I mean, you're from Michigan, so there was 99.5 like young country. That's what my mom was. So I grew up on all that. And then he had this guitar and he had all this music that I'd never heard. And for me, that was like, oh, okay, there's so much more to this. I think that's where I connected. So was there anything like that for you where, you know, you discovered something that was like, oh, this is like, I know it is this, but this is what music could be?
Oh, yeah. I remember like, oh, yeah, that's a very sick question. Cause like, yeah, I have a very specific memory of like, I was at a friend's house who I don't even remember being friends with him. I just remember being at his house and he was like, here, take this CD. It was just like a burned CD. And I went on a trip to Florida and I put it in my CD player and it was Fall Out Boy's first album. And I remember like listening to Fall Out Boy and I was like, what is this? This is like the best thing I've ever heard. Like what I didn't really even know like electric guitar, like amps. Like I was so kind of like kid ignorant. Like I just didn't know like what I was hearing, you know, and like drums and like, it was so wild to hear that, like, just like very, very professional, like studio recording, like fucking punk rock stuff. And it was just like, this is so cool. And that like kind of propelled me to like, I want to like make something, you know, like legit like that one day. Like I want to like do something like that. And so that, and like, I remember like I bought like a Good Charlotte CD when I was little. And that was like the coolest thing ever. And that like, I don't remember like historically, like if you were to ask me 10 years ago, like that same question, I'm not sure I would say the same thing, but like now looking back, like you look back in your past and you kind of are like, what made you do the things that you do now? And I would say, yeah, the Good Charlotte CD and the Fall Out Boy CD like pushed me to like get an electric guitar and to like start a band in my garage and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man, I loved that first Fall Out Boy record. It had oh my God, what is it called? Grand Theft Autumn. And there's just so many good songs on it. And I remember I went to Warped Tour the year that record came out.
Oh, sick.
Dude, the Detroit Warped Tour, they were playing a smaller stage and it got bum rushed and the stage collapsed and the speakers fell into the crowd. Yeah.
Really?
Like, that record came out and it just lit up. Like people were all about it. It was crazy.
Whoa.
Now, I think that's funny because that record for me, it was like Blink 182 and like I was really into the Starting Line and all this like pop punk stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you say that because I was actually thinking about this the other day, but you know, I think we are a generation where there was a lot of, and maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't, but looking back on it, it feels like a generation of a lot of young men talking about their feelings. You know what I mean, like there was like, and I don't know if there was anything like, you know, you've got like Zeppelin, which is like, let's fuck and do drugs and all that. And then you get to like, like the pop punk and it's like, I'm a dude, but I feel all this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was like the first attempt at some sort of introspection. And that was interesting to me. Because, you grow up listening to AC/DC and like all that stuff. And like, it's cool. But, you know, it's like, you know, some of it's objectifying. Some of it's like, I don't know. And like the first time you hear something that's like, oh, you can write a song about like what's going on in your brain. Like, that's kind of cool. And I feel like that generation was kind of the first kind of like, where it was like more mainstream than ever, I think. Yeah.
Now, do you think, because for me, I know that, I mean, you know, I haven't done anything musically in a very long time. I still sing and write and record stuff home, but it's more just because it's something I enjoy doing. But, you know, I know for me, even now when I sit down, I'm like, I want to work out an idea. I think that has a lasting impact on me where just in, you know, what I come up with in lyrics and things like that, do you find that same association? Like, I guess, like, do you feel like growing up with that kind of genre of music, does it make it easier for you to say like, hey, I've got this emotion or I'm going through this and I've got this feeling, it's easier for me to put it out there? Yeah.
It's like when you hear that when you're younger, and then it kind of is like sitting in your subconscious. And then when it comes time for you to make your art, it's like you have that door available to open, and had it not been there, you might have still come across it and you might have still been able to, write the same kind of stuff. But just like knowing that like all these other bands that I really love, like had this sort of vulnerability and like, or at least just ability to be introspective, like definitely made it easier and like made it less scary or like less like, it made it easier to like not care what other people think, because it's like, I don't have to like write a, like a Led Zeppelin song and have it be like exactly the style that they have. Like I have all these options because I've heard all these bands do a wide range of topics and styles and lyric content. And it just makes it easier to just be like, yeah, I'm just going to like do whatever the hell I want. And I don't care what anybody thinks.
Yeah. It's almost like having more colors on your palette board, or like more brushes, where it's
totally,
and that's one thing I did want to ask you, because listening to the stuff that you sent me, especially in the guitar tone, if we're talking about like, especially like men saying like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. A lot of the guitar tones on the record, and I mean this as like the largest compliment because they're one of my favorite bands of all time. But I get a very like Cure-esque in the guitar tone. When I was listening to it, I was getting that as well. It's like, oh, like, we had pop punk, but I guess they were like that version, in the 80s and of that era, or that sound, like the Depeche Modes and the Cure and stuff like that. I mean, is that anything that that's kind of what I was saying, like I drew that correlation, but I have no idea if that's anything that you listen to or anything like that. So I mean, for this record, did you find yourself, I guess, is there any kind of correlation between that and then some of that era?
Yeah. It's interesting because like a lot of my friends were really dug into the Cure and all that stuff. And like, My Bloody Valentine and stuff. And for some reason I like never like that time period definitely was a huge influence, but I feel like I took the influence from the bands that were inspired by the Cure, which is, and like that whole vibe, kind of from like the 80s, like kind of like British kind of new wave stuff. So I feel like, I don't know, man. I haven't been like obsessed with any of that. I think I just like listen to a sound and I'm like, I love that sound. And then I kind of just like go off and I try to like do something with it, but I don't like necessarily like eat, breathe, sleep, a certain thing. So yeah, it's interesting. I think most of it was from like listening to newer bands that were inspired by older bands, if that makes any sense. And yeah, it's kind of like a tree. It's kind of like the root definitely is there. Like all that stuff that happened back then is definitely there, but like it kind of is branched off and I'm just like on one of these like little branches that are like way over here.
Yeah. And I think that's a good way, you know what I mean? Because there's so many bands that I listen to that, exactly like you said, are inspired by the generation before them. I mean, a band like Greta Van Fleet, for example. It's like, if you've never heard Zeppelin and I played you Greta Van Fleet and Zeppelin right next to each other, you'd be like, oh, it's the same fucking band.
It's the same band. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, I think there are some things that, that was what, the 60s, 70s, there's still a market or desire to hear that sound. And I think that kind of speaks to what you're saying, where it's like, I'm doing this because I've been influenced by all these people. And it just seems like every generation, there's certain things that just kind of keep going down.
Right. It's like
the line.
It's like they're bands that like create the root of the genre. They are like the pioneers. They are the like founders of that. And then like they have babies and then they have babies and they have babies and they have babies. And so like, yeah, it's so crazy how it evolves. Like I was listening to like T-Pain yesterday. I like put on like Buy You a Drink and I was like, you know what? People used to make fun of this guy for using autotune and stuff. But like when you really think about it, like he was a pioneer and he like embraced autotune and he just didn't give a fuck about anything. And he just said like, I'm going to use it because it sounds great and it's a tool and I'm just going to make music. And now he was kind of like a pioneer in like pitch correction, and and it's just like now there's like a ton of people that make music that have that sort of effect on it, and you don't really think twice anymore. But like, so yeah, it's the artists that like create the roots that are so interesting because they have a very long impact on music going forward, like decades. And that's so crazy to me. And I don't know how that like starts. Like, how do you invent a certain vibe or like genre? It's like so mysterious to me, and it's really interesting. But yeah.
And it's funny, like I think my favorite thing in that T-Pain reference too is I don't know if you've ever seen his Tiny Desk concert.
I was like thinking
he doesn't need it, but to your point, he was like, I want to do something. I mean, he's an amazing vocalist, and he was just like, I want to make something that sounds catchy and something that's different. And I think you bring up a very interesting point because it feels like it's only outside of the arts, because like you've got someone like Quentin Tarantino who. He straight up jacks soundtracks from, these obscure movies in the 70s or, painters, still going back to Van Gogh or Picasso and be like, this is a huge influence. And you still see that.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, and maybe you have an idea, but like, do you think there's something about the arts in particular, whether it's music or film or, literature or anything like that? Do you think there's something special about the arts that allows that tree to kind of grow the way that it does?
Yeah, that's a sick question. Yeah, I think because there's no instruction manual on how to do art, like there's no, like you cannot open a book and like I mean, you can buy a book and it'll like on paper will technically show you how to write a song, but like that's not art, And so there's no handbook for creativity, and creativity even being like self-discipline, like sitting down and practicing to get creative, and like how do you even begin to start to be creative, and like there's just no handbook for that stuff. And I think we as artists we kind of just like look down and kind of not down like as in like looking down on somebody, but like we look at our past and we look at people that have done what we're trying to do now, and we kind of emulate that because there's no rule book on how to do it. And so it's like, well, I don't know how to go on tour. Like, I don't know how to make a good sounding album. Like, let me just kind of like Google what my favorite band does and like, or like what their favorite band was. And you kind of just have to, I think it just breeds that sort of like exploration because there's nobody like calling you and like, hey, you want to write a song? Well, let me tell you exactly how to do it. It's kind of abstract.
Yeah, it's no, it definitely does too. And I mean, I think you make a very valid point as far as like, so I dated a girl for a while whose dad was an artist, and he was a very talented artist, but he did very similar. It was very Bob Ross-esque, like, hey, here's a cabin in the woods and stuff like that. So like, it was still very good, but it didn't really feel like it was pushing anything. You know what I mean? And so I think when you talk about like there's a book, like maybe there is a book, even when you do use that book, how well does it turn out compared to someone who's like, hey man, I gotta figure it out. Like I have to figure out what works for me and pull from here and pull from there. And I think that's really what makes things, what can make something stand out kind of on its own and have its own legs.
Yeah. And it's like, you have to be that is so true. I've never thought of it like that. Yeah. Cause it's like, you have to be the person that decides like what stuff to pull. And you have to be the judge of like, I'm going to do some crazy stuff on the song that I've never actually heard before. And I don't know if like people are going to like this or not. And you have to be the judge of being like, you have to make the call. You have to be like, I'm going to follow what I think is right. And you have to do it. And I think that's what breeds like people kind of pushing like genres in the envelope, is people just not caring about what other people think and just making that decision. Like, this is cool. Even if it sucks, like whatever, I'm just going to try it. And so, yeah. And then it's so crazy how creativity works like that. It's really interesting, but yeah, just pulling stuff from artists that you've admire, and then adding a little bit of your own like personality by being like, I like this genre, but I'm gonna put a trombone on it, or just like making those decisions or make you unique. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and it's like, I guess like the best example for me is when I was in Robots in the Garden, we had written a song called Missing Pieces, and it was the title track from the record. And we were recording with Matt, and Matt was like, dude, this song needs a trumpet. And I was like, you're out of your fucking mind. This song needs a trumpet. What are you talking about? He's like, seriously, like, trust me, just listen. Like, let me do something, because Matt's a sick trumpet player. He was like, let me do something. And we came back and he played it. And I was just like, oh, you're right. Like that. Like I can't hear this without that ever being. And it became my favorite part of the entire record. Yeah. So it's like, it's so weird how your brain, like you and I could hear something and we both get the same main source of input, but then our both, because of our wiring, we're like, well, I think, what if we did this? And then you'd be like, oh, well, what if we tried this? And it's just crazy. The difference in the schematics of the head.
Oh, dude, I 100% know what you're talking about. Yeah. It's like, what makes somebody hear a trumpet part in a song and then somebody else not hear that? Like, what is that? And yeah, it's like, what about your brain? Like, here's some parts, or like has some idea. And then some people have nothing close to that idea, but like have something different. Like, what about that makes creativity so unique? And that is really interesting. Yeah. I think because I feel like that all the time. I mean, I work on like a ton of band stuff like all the time. I'm like, hey, this is probably going to suck, but I added in like I added in some harmonies that I sang, or like I added in a cello or something. And sometimes it's bad and sometimes it's good, but like I feel like as artists, we always have to at least just be like, hey, like, let's try it. Let's just try it, see what happens.
Yeah, and it feels like it's always with like a pinch of modesty too.
Yeah,
it's Now listen, I can totally take it out if you don't like it.
That's what it is.
But I did this crazy cello part. Just let me know what you think. Or
yeah, it's like I set you two versions, one normal, one the crazy, and you pick which one.
Because you don't ever want to come and be like, listen, this is what this needed. So I put it there. You could thank me later. You know
right.
I mean?
Yeah. Because it's never, there's no rules. There's no right or wrong. Yeah. I'm usually wrong, but yeah, it's funny how that works.
Yeah. It's just like to this day, whenever I hear that song that we did, I'm like, dude, I get pissed at myself that I wasn't the one to think about it.
Yeah.
So I was like, it took somebody else to be like, dude, this would be so much better. And it's super simple. It's like a 2-note swell, but it lifts it up and adds like a depth to it, where I was just like, man, like I don't know. I get frustrated with myself for feeling like I dropped the ball because somebody else heard some, I don't know. It's weird.
Yes, you can't imagine it not being there now. And it's so obvious and concrete in the songs forever now because it's recorded, that it's like, how did I not get that? Yeah, I know the feeling. Yeah.
Well, and I wanted to ask you this too, because like tonally, the record feels very it feels like very familiar to itself. Like there's a tone to the record. It's very warm. It's almost like, I mean, it's definitely dancey. It's not, I wouldn't say it's like pop dance music, but there's there's grooves in the drums and stuff like that. And I was wondering, for you with these songs, was this like, did you say, hey, I need to do a record, I'm going to write all these songs at once? Or were these songs that you would kind of piece together, like maybe I did this one a year ago and then this one, and now I'm just kind of making them all fit? Was there a common thread, or was it just, stuff that you had in your arsenal that you hadn't used?
Yeah. Great question. I started, I wrote like a couple songs just for fun with no plans to do anything. And I've always wanted to do an album. So, and I've always just kind of like put out some EPs like every 5 years or whatever. And so I wrote these songs and I was like, I kind of like these. And I like, what about like, should I just try to do an album for the first time? And they had like just like the Logic drummer on it, you know, and like it wasn't anything like super serious. In terms of like tonal quality, I had no idea yet. I was just kind of like trying stuff out. And then it kind of slowly turned into like, I want to do an album, and I like got a whiteboard, and I was like, okay, I have 2 songs here. I want to do this many, and it's going to take me, I was super optimistic with myself. It's going to take me a month for every song to write, which didn't work out. And so yeah, it kind of evolved to like, after like song 2, it was kind of like, I'm writing an album and I need to start figuring out like, I want it to sound as consistent as possible, and what do I need to do to make that sound consistent. And so a lot of decisions that I made when I tracked it were made solely to make it sound cohesive, because I didn't want it to be like, we recorded drums in this studio and then we went to another studio and then like I used this mic on this song and then this mic on this song. Like I just wanted everything to be as consistent as possible, because in my brain I'd never done an album, and I'm like, well, that's how you do it. You just use the same everything for everything, and
right,
it's gonna sound the same. But yeah, so I guess to answer your question, yeah, like song 2, it kind of started to come together of like, I want it to sound as consistent as possible tonally. Yeah.
Well, and I know that like you've been playing, I mean, you were playing shows as Sea Salt, you know, with a group of guys. I mean, what, like going back like 2 years now?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But this album, from what I understand, other than the drums, I mean, this is pretty much you, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I wrote this. So
yeah,
you know, especially being someone who's been in, you know, the majority of I've been in bands longer in my life than I think I've been alive. So,
yep.
I guess my question is, you know, when you're with a band, it's everybody else's input then kind of helps shape what it becomes.
Yeah.
Was it a challenge for you at all to be like, okay, this is all on me, or was it, you know, kind of freeing to be like, because I know sometimes for me, I was like, listen, this is what I want to hear. I know you guys are thinking this, but like this, this is what I envision this as. So
yeah,
do one side outweigh the other?
Totally. Yeah. So the way I am very, I wish this wasn't a part of my personality, but I have very strong opinions, and I get very butthurt all the time about like criticism, and I wish I was different, and I'm working on it. But when I'm writing my own music, in my brain, I treat it as like, this is my music, and everything that is to come out of the speaker should be from me, because this is my way of expressing myself. And so when we did the album, the way I did it was like, I would do like the Logic drummer in Logic that would just like play the drums for me. And I would kind of like do a skeleton. And I would basically like write the song there, and I would take it to band practice, and I'd be like, here's the song. Like, here's your parts. Like, I've got your guitar parts in the Dropbox folder. Like, listen to it. Here's the bass part, drop it. It's in the Dropbox. Like, put on your headphones and listen to it and practice it. So I'm pretty, not flexible, which sucks. I wish I could be more collaborative with people, but I just can't with my own music. At least it has to be like, I did the bass, I did the guitar, I did the foot. Like, it's so stupid, but it's just the way that I have to do it. So there was no, besides drums, my drummer David did a really good job, like adding drum stuff to the album. I would just have like a 4/4 like drum beat, and he would be like, that sucks, let's do something different. And I tried to be really open to the drum parts. So that was the one area that was a little different from like me just recording everything else.
Yeah, I have no skill on the drum at all.
Yeah.
I can just do like the do, and that's it. So it helps when you have somebody that you trust, that you'd be like, listen, man, like I need to take this up a notch, and I trust you to do this. Like, was it easier for you? I guess my question is, if that's not particularly in your wheelhouse, was it easier for you to collaborate in that particular instance? Because sometimes it feels like if if you're working with someone who obviously has a better knowledge of the subject, it's easier to be like, okay, I put my trust in you for this.
Yeah, I was like, I can play drums to save my life. If somebody had a gun to my head and they're like, play some beat, I could maybe do it. But yeah, I don't consider myself to be a drummer by any means. So yeah, it made it way easier to be like, okay, you play drums for a living. Like, I will trust you to do what needs to be done. And so that made it a lot easier to be able to trust somebody that like does what they do. But even then I was still like, hey man, can you play it like this? Like, can you switch to the right on this part? Like, no, you got to do the open hi-hat on this part. Like, I was still being like a little poop head about it, but I definitely was way more open than I was for anything else. And it turned out great. I wish I could collab more like that, because it turned out, I think the drum parts sound great, I think, and David did a really good job. So it is teaching me to be more open, I guess, is the moral of the story for that. 2020
is the year of self-improvement, my friend.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like, yeah. And you know what? I mean, I've talked about it on the show before, but like, you know, I've been going to therapy just for anxiety around COVID and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if it's like being able to recognize like, okay, yeah, maybe okay, I have to control all of this. I mean, maybe just recognizing that puts you in the position where you're like, oh, I can trust somebody else because I know this about myself. I know this is my behavior, so maybe I need to try to put something else in somebody else's hands. So
yeah,
I mean, who knows?
Yeah, it's crazy because you don't get a text on your phone that's like, you are doing this because you are bad with working with people. It's kind of just like, in my brain, it's just like, that's how I've been. That's how it is. But yeah, it's when you start playing shows with other people and like learning, you know, how other people record albums, you kind of get an average of like, oh, like that's not how it usually works. People like write more collaboratively and like it's more fun. And yeah, you just kind of are like, whoa, maybe I'm the one that's messed up and not normal. But yeah, it's crazy how that works.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think some of my favorite projects though is where the person is like, hey, I just do everything. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's a little cheese, but I'm a big fan of the Rocket Summer. And
yeah.
he does everything himself and then just gets a band when he goes on the road. But it's, you know, it's there. I think there's something too. And I think even doing the recordings that I do here at the house, even though, you know, I don't know if anybody will ever hear them, it's just like, oh, cool. I did this. Like at the end of the day,
totally.
I didn't need anybody else. I was able to put together this idea on my own. So, you know, I think even though it's nice to collaborate, I think there's still something to be said for like, hey, this is my idea. This is my vision for it. And I've got the wherewithal to be able to put it all together. So,
yeah. And I think for me, it's like, I mean, music is it's just a part of my identity so much to the point where I feel like if I am super open to changing things and super open to collabing with other people on my songs specifically, it feels like I'm not myself because I have such an attachment to music and it's such a part of me that like, I feel like if I share, then it's giving it away, which it's not, but it's just, that's what has been happening for my whole life with music. Yeah. It's weird.
Well, do you think any of it is like, okay, because like you said, like you've got that attachment that is such a part of your life where it's, hey, like I control this, like I know every part. If you didn't have that, do you think, is there a fear of maybe like losing a sense of identity if you're not the one who's totally, and I know this is like some Dr. Phil shit, but it's just,
no, it's sick. Yeah.
I was just
awesome.
wondering, like, is there a sense of like, oh, well, if I don't have control of this, then what do I have control of?
Yeah, totally. It's like, this is the only thing that I think I'm kind of like good at, and I'm not. Like, I have friends that are like doing so many more things and are so much more talented than me. But for me, it's the thing that I think that I am kind of good at. And so it's like, I'm not good at like card games. I'm not good at like sports. I'm not good at like anything. And like, so the one thing that I think that I'm kind of good at is music. And so, yeah, you're right. I do feel like if I am sharing that, I am losing a part of like I have a fear of losing my identity. Yeah. If I do that. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know. The psyche is super weird. Like
it's so weird.
Like, you know, I didn't have the best relationship with my dad growing up, and now I'm a dad. And like one thing for me was always like, I'm going to have a better relationship with my kid than I had with my dad. And then COVID happened, and it was like, oh, well, you could die. And so I started getting this anxiety, and I'm like, why am I so stressed out? And I realized it was, I'm afraid that like if something happens to me, I don't have that opportunity to be better than the person before me. You know what I mean? So it's like the way that your brain just associates stuff and be like, oh, like, well, if I let somebody else take the lead on this, does that mean I'm a failure? Or I can't handle it? Or it's fucking weird, man. It's
it's like the way our brain identifies with like things and hobbies and like life events, like the way it identifies personally with you. You don't, again, like you're not getting a text that's like, you're feeling this way because it's a part of you, and it's flowing, and it goes and it comes, and it's just so confusing. But yeah, it's really interesting.
That's if I wish there was like, that's $1 million idea.
Yeah.
Just like send it to, hey, you're feeling anxious.
Yeah.
Like, this is why.
Yeah. That would be sick.
Well, and you know, on COVID too, because you know, it seems like before, so let me ask you this. Was COVID helpful, or was it a hindrance in working on the record? Like, did it give you more time, or?
So I had completed the album, in like early October. I think I was still finishing stuff up. It was great because I was able to, me and Matt were able to work together, and like I was able to send him like revisions and stuff without, you know, being like, oh, I got a show to play with, I got practice. I'm like, you know, I wasn't busy, so I had time to like, you know, respond and like write him notes, which I should be doing anyways because it's my damn album. But it was helpful in that way, like where I had time to get revisions, and that's basically all that happened this year was we were just mixing the album. And I wanted Matt to like take as much time. Like I was like, whatever, like it's COVID, like, you know, times are stressful. Like literally I have no time limit. Just like whenever it's done, it's done. So it was nice just to be like, my album's done. Matt's working on it. It's being mixed. Whenever he gets it to me. And like, I can just chill for a second because it was a lot of work to get to that point.
Yeah. And, you know, I think it's funny too, because you know, kind of going back to like the collaboration end. Yeah, I think that's one of those things, like, you know, you were basically, hey, Matt, take your time. Like, I trust you. I'll let you know if I need anything to change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think, again, you know, I've said it before, but Mat Halliday, he's been on the podcast. He produces the show. And I'm always a guy that's like, hey, man, I'd like to do this, but if it's too much work for you, like I'll figure out a different way. And
yeah.
I was like, no, man, I got it. Like, just let me, you know, just out of the goodness of his heart. So it's really cool. Like, I don't know. I think it just goes back to the fact, like, if you trust somebody's work ethic and like, they're going to be like, you feel like they're going to be flexible with any criticism. Like, it just, I don't know. I think it just makes it easier to be like, okay, cool. You know,
it does. And, you know, like I do a lot of mixing, like, for other bands, and, I really look up to Matt as a mixing engineer. He's probably one of my favorite, like I've learned a lot just by like doing, you know, sessions, you know, when we were doing our, you know, PK Fire EPs and stuff. So yeah, for me, it was like, you know, I didn't want to work with just a rando person that mixes. Like, I know I trusted him, you know, I've worked on his stuff or he's worked on my stuff, and I just really trusted him. So it was easy for me to like, be like, do whatever you want. Like, I trust you.
Well, you know, I know you said, you know, this year, you know, you weren't playing shows or anything like that. Like, I've had a few of my friends on who are musicians throughout the year. I mean, we started, the first podcast came out before New Year's of 2020. So we've been going about a year now.
Cool.
And in March, in January, we were all just like, I had people coming to my house and we're recording. And then by March, it was like, what the fuck is happening to the universe? So like, have you missed being out and playing shows? Has it, I mean, like, have you had to like restructure your plan with the release or anything like that? Or, I mean, have you been pretty go with the flow with it all?
Yeah. So right when I was touring Europe, with a band called Ibu, right while COVID was like, right when we found out that it was a thing, it was like, I don't know, February, early March. And we did like I think we're out for like 3-4 weeks in Europe. And it was cold and the van broke and it was stressful. Honestly, it was fun. I'll never forget it. But after we got back, it was kind of like, in terms of playing shows, I feel like I'm good on shows for a little bit. You know, you're playing a show every day for like a month straight, you know, and it kind of wears on you. And I got kind of worn down a little bit, which is weird because playing shows is so fun. Like it's the most fun thing ever. It's just like, it is a lot of work, like loading your gear and like going to the next place. It's just a lot of like mental games. So it was nice. I didn't feel like I had to play any shows. I think, you know, we didn't have to do like band practice. You know, I was like, oh, well, it's COVID and we don't have to do band practice on Thursday. I don't know, man. I took it as like I can just hang out and not worry about music, because any other time I was like writing the album or like mixing songs for people or like practicing or like playing shows. And I took this year as kind of just a time just to like play Fortnite and just to like just hang out and like eat cheeseburgers and like send Matt some emails about the album every once in a while. And I was just like, again, like whenever it's done, it's done. I'll pick a release date when it's done and I feel like everything's ready to go. So it's been pretty, I mean, it's been awful, but in terms of that sense, it's been pretty low key. And I enjoyed it.
I don't know, like when in your lifetime you'll be like, yeah, I had a 9-month mental break. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. It's sick.
You know, it's like if that's the best positive spin on it that I've heard. I'm just like, yeah, it took a 9-month sabbatical.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I'd be like, sorry, I can't hang out. I gotta play more video games and hang out. And you know, it fucking sucks so much, but it is nice to just like clear your brain and like think about 2021 or probably 2022. You know, it's just nice just to like wipe it all.
Yeah, that is one thing that tickles me a lot is when people are like, it's almost 2021 and it's like it's going to hit midnight on New Year's Day.
Yeah, it's over.
And suddenly everything is different. Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a ride, huh?
Everything's good now. We're all vaccinated. Everything's great. It's January 1st. Yeah. I bought the Tony Hawk 1 and 2 reissue. Oh,
so
shit,
I just like for religiously until I beat it. It was just click nonstop.
Dude, that is my number one. Oh man, I'm super that. Okay, so I have a Switch and I just play like Fortnite, and I'm not ashamed of it. I just play Fortnite all the time. But other than that, Tony Hawk is the game. That is my number one favorite game, and I want to buy a PS4. Or PS3, PS2, just to like play that game. And I cannot believe I haven't done that in all of this year. And so that is sick, and I'm jealous.
Yeah, I think that's why so when 2 came out, we were in the Rising Tide. That's how long ago.
Oh shit, Rising Tide.
You know what? No, I don't even think it came out then. I think we had a PlayStation 2 in the van. So when we were touring, we would just sit in the back and play it like religiously. And so when they did the reissue, it looks amazing.
Oh man,
I'm so good.
I'm so jealous.
So once COVID's over, if you ever come down to Nashville for a show, we'll make you dinner. You can come over, we could shred. I will maybe lose, but maybe win. It's 50-50. Well, you know, I also wanted to ask you too, you know, the pre-order just finished, what was it, Friday? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I thought your pre-order was really interesting because you are doing it from what I understand, the pre-order is just for straight vinyl. So if you want a physical copy, you get a vinyl. Yep. And then everything else is the digital release. So what was it that kind of inspired you to be like, yeah, I'm going to go I'm going to go old school with this and just do the vinyl as the physical release?
Yeah. So I've always wanted to do vinyl forever. It was just on my bucket list. Like I just want to do vinyl, and it took a lot of work to like get that, a lot of time and money to like get that shipped into my door. So when I had it, I just wanted to have something physical that I put so much work into this album, and I just wanted to be able, for me personally, to hold it in my hands and to like have my own like liner notes. And I just wanted it for me so bad that I was like, I'm just going to get some vinyl, and I can't just order one vinyl. So I might as well get some more. And so that was mostly it. I just wanted it for me. I'm not making any money on it. Obviously vinyl is not, you don't make money doing vinyl, but, yeah, I just really wanted it. So, I just did the pre-order. The Bandcamp Friday was the last one on Friday. So that was really great. And I'll still sell what I have left, when it releases. I just wanted to, make sure people like were able to get it. And I'm throwing in like, I have like little sea salt masks, and, I make these,
I saw those. They look awesome.
Yeah, and I have this little 3D printed thing that like spins on the record. It's like a 3D drawing of the album artwork.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah. So I just wanted to like throw in some like goodies and like for people just for fun. Yeah, I don't know.
So I mean, are you feeling pretty good about how the pre-order has gone up until this point? I mean, like,
yeah. I am super surprised. I mean, if I'm gonna be super honest, I mean, I'm almost out. And I did not expect it at all. So I'm gonna have to get more. I'm gonna have to get more vinyl, which is sick. So yeah, today was gonna be the day. I actually might do it. If later tonight, I gotta pack everything up. I'm gonna ship out some records on tomorrow or Tuesday this week. I'm shipping them out.
That's awesome.
So I got all my boxes and the bubble wrap and the tape, and I got my like label printer all ready to go. I'm just gonna like have a shipping party.
Yeah, it's always, I don't know, man. I think there's like a sense of, I think it kind of goes back to like, there's a sense of pride in doing something by yourself, and then especially when it's received well, you know what I mean? Like, because like, I remember when we did the Robots record, we wanted to do vinyl, but we were like, we were trying to be party music. Like the people that came to see our shows wanted to get drunk and like jump around. They weren't going to be like, let me get a vinyl and take it home and put it,
they got their monocle on.
Yeah, right. Dressed like Mr. Peanut. But we found a company that made the CD, but the CD actually looked like vinyl. Like it had the grooves in it and everything like that.
I feel like I had that.
Maybe. I don't, yeah. I've got one copy of it around here somewhere that I've just kept for like, when I'm an old man, I'll be like, I remember this. But
I feel like I know exactly what we're talking about, and I owned it at one point in my life.
Yeah, that's the one that Matt did for us, and his sister actually did the artwork because she's crazy talented. And then, it came together really well. But I think there's something about, even if it's not an actual vinyl, if it's got that, and it's crazy because I think even for people who weren't alive when vinyl was like the thing,
right? Yeah,
it still has this sense of like cool and nostalgia.
Yeah,
that you just don't get from like, let me pull up the Spotify app on my phone and listen.
Yeah,
to it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I just wanted to. It's just like I just wanted a physical. I mean, I could have got CDs, but like, there's something about still to this day about like having a vinyl record, and you pull out the thing and it's like, it's 12 by 12 and it's like this big thing. There's something about it. Like, I was born in 92. I don't remember having vinyls at all, except when I wanted to be a DJ for like a year. There's just something about it that's just like really cool. And it just feels like I got a really big sense of accomplishment when I opened the box. I was like, this is my album that I've been working on forever. And I'm physically holding it in my hand, and I can tell which side it is because I can see like the grooves. I can tell like this is side A and this is side B just by looking at it. Mm-hmm. And like, you just know every little thing about it. And it's just so cool just to like have it in your hands. And, you know, even if nobody like actually puts it on the record player, it's just cool just to like have something that it's just nice to know that people care about, you know, something that I made, which is insane.
It's an awesome feeling, man. And yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy. I'll say this, you know, one of the things that I've really enjoyed about, so when I first found Sea Salt and then finding out that the record, you know, was being worked on, and then because Matt told me, he's like, I have no idea when it's coming out. And then, and then literally like a couple months later, it was like, oh, it's dropping. You know, one thing that I've really got a lot of joy out of this year is projects like this, because it's just been, in general, it's been a very hard year.
Yeah.
So when something good like this gets put out, you know what I mean, gets put into the universe, and it's like, hey, I've worked on this. This is a labor of love, and now like I'm giving it to whoever wants it. I think that's the kind of things that have helped people get through this year. You know what I mean? So like, maybe this record coming out and somebody, you know, gets it and listens to it, will be like, oh, well, this just fixed my 2020. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to think about it. And I saw the pictures of when you guys got the test pressing and just seeing like how excited you guys were.
I was so stoked,
you know, to be like, I don't know. It's just got to make it. It feels like it, like those are the things that have made things easier. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I didn't want to, I thought about like putting it out in 2021. I was like, should it, you know, I'm putting it out in like the middle of December of the worst year ever. But to me, it's like, I don't know. I want to have at least some sort of like highlight to this year for me personally. Just like I want to put out an album, and I think music will always be going on. Like, you know, venues are closing and bands like can't tour anymore, but like people are always still making music, and it's just crazy to see. Like, I know here in Seattle, there's, you know, the local scene is crazy cool, and like people are still putting out music, and like they're doing live streams, and like it will always go on, like no matter what's going on. And I didn't want to make it seem like I'll put it out in January when it's perceived that everything will be over, even though it won't. But like, you know, I just wanted to like, it's out. I'm just going to pretend that like this year was a normal year, and I hope other people can like sense that, I guess. I don't know. Like,
I like the idea of like, I put this out, so I have like my good thing of 2020.
Yeah.
It's coming out December 18th. So I'm like, that's a fucking buzzer beater, man. That's
I will.
That's like a 3-point at the buzzer.
Yeah. I will never forget this year ever. Oh, that's going down in history. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, 2021, like with the vaccine, you know, hopefully people take it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like hopefully it's safe, and then hopefully it's proven to be safe. And then once it's proven to be safe, hopefully people take it. But, you know, granted, like if things turn around, like have you planned anything for, you know, what you're going to do as far as like getting out for this? Or is it still just kind of like, I'm playing it day by day? Like, hey, it's out now. So
yeah, I had all of these. I mean, I was like going to buy a van. I was going to like start playing a tour in like March, like right when I got back. I was going to be like, we're going to tour in like a year. The album will be out. We're going to go on tour. We've never gone on tour before. So I had all these like lofty plans, like first time plans. But I'm just kind of playing it by ear right now. I was going to have like this giant like album release. Like I was going to like buy out my favorite venue in Seattle. And like, we were just going to like have a, you know, bunch of sick bands play and like have a sick time, but obviously that's not happening. So I'm just kind of playing it by ear. I've been just like posting like coming soon stuff for like years, to the point where it's just like, I just want to get it out so I can get it out. I just like don't want to delay anything. Like people have been waiting or just pretending to wait for the album forever. So I'm just like trying to get it out, and like whatever happens, like once things are cleared up, I'll start thinking about it. But it's just, everything is just so crazy. My brain is, I can't focus more than like a day at a time right now.
Well, you know, I did want to ask, so, you know, obviously the pre-order just finished, but you're still going to have some copies available on vinyl. And I know that you're on Bandcamp. Bandcamp does the Bandcamp Friday. So when the record is out, like, you please guys, if you're listening, and I mean, go to the Bandcamp now. Once you finish listening to this episode, we'll link it up in the show notes. It's just seasalt.bandcamp.com. Listen to the title track. It's awesome. But is there, I know it's going to be on Spotify, things like that, but is there a way that you prefer people to check it out, or like, what's the best way, I guess, people come the 18th, once it's out, what's the best way that people can listen to the record, but support you directly? Because I feel like right now, especially being an artist, and if this is, this is your, what you do, it's a crazy time for a lot of people. And, I kind of look at it as like, everyone's like, shop it at small businesses. Well, it's like, buy the record from fucking person who made the record.
Right.
You know what I mean? Is there anything specifically that people can do that, if they're listening to this, say, check it out, they want to support you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely, like, I'm not trying to pressure anyone. Like, if, like, I would just say, like, first listen to it on Spotify, or Apple Music, whatever you're streaming, like wherever you listen to music the most. And then if you like it, like, it would be super helpful to, like, buy it on Bandcamp. I think it's like $7. That's the best way. I think, like, just listen to it. And if it speaks to you at all, like, throw me $7, and that would be really cool. I think right now, I have so many friends don't even have jobs right now. I'm not trying to, like, buy it, like, give me money, like, buy my merch, buy everything. It's just like, whatever you feel comfortable with. Like, if it speaks to you, like, I don't know, download it, or I've got some other merch, just do whatever you can. Things are hard, and I'm not trying to make any money off of it. And so just stream it on Spotify or Apple Music or Bandcamp, whatever you prefer. I'm just happy that it's out.
Well, you may not be trying to pressure people, but I am. So
Yeah.
Listen to it if you like it. It's December. People are out Christmas shopping. I see the line at Starbucks.
Yep.
Two of those macchiatos is like $8. You know what I'm saying? Like,
just buy me a couple macchiatos.
Right. A guy's got to drink.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, I did, just to kind of close it up, man. Yeah, I wanted to reiterate, like, I'm just so happy that it's out. I'm happy, like, being someone who's been in the position where you work on something for so long, and then you start to put it out in the world, and then you're sitting and you're like, okay, how's it going to be received? What are people going to think? Like, I've being someone who's been in that seat, I know it's like an exciting time, and it's there can be anxiety attached to it. But at the end of the day, it's a really good record, dude. It's really, really good. And I'm really hoping that people check it out. And I just want to say thank you for being here, man. I really appreciate you coming and sitting down and talking. And Block It Out will be out December 18th. It'll be on Spotify. Again, seasalt.bandcamp.com. Check it out. Buy the record. $7. Buy something else. Christmas is coming. If you have someone who likes music, get them a shirt or a mask or a record or whatever. But Kurt, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Will you stick around for me for a minute after we wrap up?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
No, dude, thank you for being here. Guys, that is episode 40. We're almost a year in. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.